Some betrayals don't kick in your door. Some pull up in a clean pickup, wear a pressed shirt, and call themselves practical. Mine came on a Tuesday morning at 7:06, while I was sitting at my kitchen table eating toast in the house my wife and I had paid off before either one of my sons learned how to shave. My oldest boy said, "Dad, we sold the farm. Ridgeway Homes takes possession next Friday. You need to have the house cleared out by then." I looked out the window at the red barn, at the frost still sitting on the pasture grass, at the same gravel lane my late wife used to walk barefoot in June because she said shoes were for people who didn't trust the earth. Then I said, "Garrett, you forgot one thing." He actually laughed, a short laugh, the kind a man gives when he thinks the old man has finally lost a step. "What are you talking about?" I set my coffee down, slow. "The road," I said, and that was the first time my son went quiet. "My name is Samuel Porter. Most people call me Sam. I'm 69 years old, retired master electrician, father of 2 sons, widower to a woman named Elaine who could make a kitchen smell like heaven and a liar feel like he had swallowed glass. I live just outside Bell County, Tennessee, on 38 acres folks around here still call the Porter place, even though my family didn't own it until 1987. Back then, it wasn't much. A leaning farmhouse, 1 tobacco barn with half the tin roof missing, 20 acres of tired pasture, and a creek that cut across the back like it was trying to leave too. Elaine saw it first from the passenger seat of my old Ford, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, and said, "That's home." I said, "That's a lot of work." She said, "Good. You're terrible when you're bored." That was Elaine. She could turn a problem into a promise faster than anybody I ever knew. We bought the place for $74,000, which in those days felt like writing a check with blood. I rewired the house myself after work. Elaine stripped wallpaper until her fingers cracked. We planted peach trees along the south fence, built a chicken coop, fixed the well pump twice, raised 2 boys and 3 dogs, hosted church suppers, graduation parties, 4th of July cookouts, and 1 wedding reception under a rented tent that almost blew into the neighbor's pond. My oldest son, Garrett, came into the world loud and stayed that way. Smart boy. Sharp. The kind of child who could take apart a radio at 9 and sell you the batteries back at 10. My younger son, Miles, was softer. Not dumb, don't misunderstand me. Just built different. Miles wanted everybody comfortable, even if comfort cost him his own spine. For a long time, they were good boys. They ran through these fields barefoot. They helped their mother pick peaches in July. They slept in the hayloft with flashlights and comic books and thought I didn't know. When Elaine got sick in 2018, both of them came home every weekend at first. Garrett brought takeout and talked too loud because silence made him nervous. Miles sat beside her bed and held her hand until she fell asleep. Elaine passed in our front bedroom on a rainy Thursday morning in March of 2019. The peach trees bloomed 3 weeks later like they hadn't heard the news. After she died, the farm changed. Not in the way it looked. The barn still leaned the same direction. The creek still ran brown after storms. The house still creaked at night. But the air was different. A place can hold a person after they're gone. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Elaine was in the pantry labels, in the curtains, in the row of canned tomatoes she had put up the summer before. She was in the porch swing and the kitchen floorboard that squeaked by the stove. So when my boys started talking about equity and market timing and liquidity, I heard more than words. I heard strangers walking through my memories with muddy boots. Garrett changed first. He had done well enough for himself in Knoxville, at least from the outside. Sales manager at a building supply company. Big truck, bigger house. Wife named Marissa who wore sunglasses on top of her head indoors and had a habit of saying, "Your dad's sitting on a gold mine," as if I were too deaf to hear it. They had 2 kids I loved dearly and a mortgage I suspect kept Garrett awake more nights than he admitted. It started with small comments. "Dad, you know that South Pasture alone could bring good money. Dad, have you thought about downsizing? Dad, maintaining this place at your age doesn't make sense." At my age. That phrase kept showing up like a fly in the kitchen. Miles never brought it up first. But if Garrett started, Miles would nod, stare at his plate, and say something weak like, "It is a lot for you, Dad." I noticed. A man my age notices more than his children think he does. We just don't always speak on it right away. 3 years before that phone call, after a scare with my heart that turned out to be more panic than plumbing, I sat down with a real estate attorney named Patricia Hale. Patty was 62, silver-haired, sharp as a carpet tack, and had known Elaine since high school. I wanted my papers clean. No confusion, no fighting, no courthouse mess after I was gone. The boys knew I had done some estate planning. They knew their names were connected to the farm someday. What they did not pay attention to, because greedy people rarely read past the part they like, was the exact language. The farmhouse and main acreage had been placed in a deed arrangement that gave Garrett and Miles future interest, but I retained a recorded life estate. That meant, in plain English, I could live there until the day I died or willingly signed away that right. They could not force me out. They could not deliver possession to a buyer. They could not treat me like old furniture to be hauled off before closing. But that wasn't the part that made me smile on that Tuesday morning. Elaine had insisted, years earlier, that the gravel lane from County Road 11 remain a separate parcel. It was only 3 acres, narrow as a belt, running from the blacktop to the farmhouse and then curving toward the barn. At the time, I thought it was unnecessary paperwork. Elaine didn't. Her grandfather had lost access to a fishing cabin once because somebody forgot to protect the road. She never forgot that story. Land without access is just a pretty headache, she told me. So the lane went into the Elaine Porter Memorial Trust after she died, with me as trustee. Not the boys, not Garrett, not Miles. Me. And without that lane, the Porter place had no legal access wide enough for subdivision equipment, utility extensions, emergency vehicles, or anything else a developer would need. You could stand in the pasture and dream all you wanted, but you couldn't build a cul-de-sac through a locked gate you didn't own. I told exactly 2 people that mattered. Patty Hale and my old neighbor, Vernon Pike, who had run the county road office for 31 years and knew land maps like preachers know sin. Garrett should have asked. He didn't. 2 days before that Tuesday call, Garrett came by on a Sunday after church. He arrived with Miles in the passenger seat, which told me right away the conversation had been arranged. Men don't bring witnesses to casual visits. Marissa didn't come. That told me even more. Garrett stepped onto the porch wearing polished boots that had never seen mud. Miles followed behind him, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes already apologizing. "Morning, Dad," Garrett said. "Coffee's inside," I said. "If this is about the Titans, I'm not in the mood." He gave me that smile. The sales smile. I hated that smile. It looked nothing like the boy who used to grin with peach juice running down his chin. We sat at the kitchen table. Elaine's table. The one with a burn mark near the edge from a Thanksgiving candle Garrett knocked over when he was 13. Garrett cleared his throat. There it was. A throat clear from your grown son is not just a sound. It is a weather warning. "Dad, Miles and I have been talking." I looked at Miles. He looked down. "Have you?" I said. Garrett placed a folder on the table. Not slid. Placed. Like he was presenting evidence. "We think it's time to make a smart decision about the farm. The farm is doing fine." "That's not what I mean." "I know exactly what you mean." His jaw tightened, but he kept that calm voice people use when they've practiced in the mirror. "Ridgeway Homes has been buying land all over the county. They're putting in a development near Mill Creek, and they're interested in this corridor. Dad, they made an informal number." I leaned back. An informal number. 640,000. Miles flinched a little, like the amount itself made him ashamed. I looked at my oldest son for a long moment. "When did you talk to Ridgeway?" Garrett's fingers tapped once on the folder. "It wasn't like that." "When?" "A couple weeks ago." "And you brought them onto my land?" "Dad, it's our future too." There it was. The sentence underneath every sentence. Our future, not my home, not his mother's kitchen. Not the place I had buried 2 dogs, fixed fences, and carried Elaine from the car when chemo made her legs too weak. Our future. I turned to Miles. "You knew about this?" Miles swallowed. "Garrett said we should just get information first." "That's not what I asked." His eyes filled, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." I stood up, took Garrett's folder, and handed it back to him. "You boys can leave now." Garrett's face reddened. Dad, don't do this. We're trying to help. No, I said. You're trying to cash out. He stood too fast, chair legs scraping Elaine's floor. You can't keep pretending you're 45. You're alone out here. I looked him dead in the eye. I was alone before you got here. That one hit him. I saw it. Not enough to stop him, but enough to bruise. Miles whispered, Dad, I'm sorry. Then start acting like it. They left without coffee. I watched Garrett's truck throw gravel all the way down the lane. Then I locked the door, walked to the hall closet, and pulled down the black metal file box Elaine used to call my thunderstorm box because I only opened it when clouds were coming. Inside were deeds, surveys, trust papers, tax maps, Elaine's death certificate, insurance policies, and one yellow sticky note in her handwriting. Don't let them rush you, Sam. I sat there in the hallway for a while with that note in my hand. Friends, there is a kind of grief that returns not because someone died, but because you realize what the living have become. By Tuesday, Garrett had decided politeness was no longer useful. That was when the phone rang at 7:06. Dad, we sold the farm. I listened. Ridgway wants possession next Friday. They're sending a cleanup crew for the barn and a survey team Monday. You need to be out by then. You sold it, I said. We signed an agreement. Me and Miles. It's done. You signed an agreement on a house I live in. It's just paperwork now. Don't make this ugly. That is something people say when they've already made it ugly and want you to carry the blame for noticing. I looked toward the window. The gate was closed. The lane was empty. Elaine's peach trees stood bare and patient, waiting on spring the way old people wait on the truth. Garrett, I said, what road do you think Ridgway bought? What? What road? Dad, stop. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. You're just hearing me for the first time. Are you refusing to leave? I'm refusing to be moved by a man who didn't read the deed. Silence. Then he said, lower. What did you do? I almost laughed then. Not because it was funny. Because my son believed the trap had to be something I did. He could not imagine that the trap was simply the truth sitting in the county records since before he ever got greedy. We'll talk at closing, I said. There won't be a closing if you don't cooperate. Oh, Garrett, I said. There will be a closing. Then I hung up. I called Patty Hale first. She answered on the second ring. He did it? She asked. He did it. How far? Purchase agreement. Possession demand. Survey crew Monday. She sighed. Bring me everything. I already have it in the truck. Of course you do. By 10 that morning, I was sitting in Patty's office in downtown Bell Ridge, across from a framed photograph of her and Elaine at 17, both of them wearing ridiculous blue eyeshadow and looking like the world had not yet dared disappoint them. Patty read through the copy Garrett had left in the folder. Ridgway Homes, regional developer. Purchase price, $640,000. Representations by sellers. Property to be delivered vacant. Access suitable for residential subdivision. No undisclosed occupancy rights. No restrictions affecting development. Patty looked over her glasses. Well, she said, your son has been very busy making promises he can't keep. I didn't answer. She turned a page. Miles signed too. I know. Do you want me to stop it now? I looked at Elaine's teenage face in the photo. No. Patty studied me. Sam, I want them at the table. That's dangerous. No, I said. What they did was dangerous. I want them to see it with witnesses. Patty leaned back. You always were Elaine's calmest bad idea. She loved that about me. She complained about that about you. Same thing, depending on the day. Patty almost smiled. Then she picked up her pen. Fine, but we do this clean. No tricks, no shouting. No threats. We let the documents talk. That's all I want. No, she said. You want your son to feel the floor disappear. I looked at her. I want him to understand he was standing on my floor. The next 9 days moved slowly and fast at the same time. Ridgway sent a survey crew out Thursday morning. I met them at the gate with a thermos of coffee and the chain still locked. A young man in a neon vest said, Sir, we're authorized to access the Porter property. By who? Ridgway Homes. And Ridgeway Homes doesn't own this lane. He blinked. It's the driveway. It is. We need to get through. You need a recorded access agreement. You have one? He looked at his clipboard like it might grow one. I gave him Patty's card and sent him back down County Road 11. Garrett called 11 minutes later. You embarrassed me. No, son. I educated a survey crew. You're going to ruin this. It was ruined when you signed it. Miles called that night. I let it ring twice before answering. Dad? I could hear the shame in his voice. Shame has a sound. Quieter than guilt, heavier than fear. Miles. Garrett says you're just trying to scare us. What do you say? He breathed into the phone for a few seconds. I say I should have asked you. That would have been a good start. Is there any way to fix it? Yes. How? Tell the truth. He didn't like that. People rarely do when lies have already gone professional. Closing was set for the following Friday at 9:30 a.m. at Cumberland Title and Escrow, a glass-fronted office between a dentist and a bank. I wore my gray suit, the one Elaine bought me for our 40th anniversary, because she said every man should own at least one suit that didn't look borrowed from a funeral home. I arrived early. Old habit. If you're early, you get to watch people become themselves before they put on the act. Ridgeway sent 3 people. A vice president named Nolan Briggs, a company attorney named Denise Harrow, and a project manager with rolled-up blueprints under his arm. Nolan had the smile of a man who had never fixed anything he couldn't replace. Denise Harrow noticed me first. Lawyers always notice the quiet person. Garrett came in at 9:22. Marissa was with him, which did not surprise me. She wore a cream coat and a diamond bracelet I hoped was fake for Garrett's sake. Miles came in behind them, pale, tie crooked. Garrett saw me and relaxed. That hurt more than I expected. He still thought my presence meant surrender. Dad, he said, reaching out a hand. I shook it because I raised him. And manners are not a reward for good behavior. Garrett. Marissa smiled at me like a woman looking at furniture she had already measured for removal. Sam, this is going to be better for everyone. I looked at her. Everyone is a big word. She stopped smiling. The title officer, a small, efficient man named Evan Cole, began arranging papers. Nolan Briggs checked his watch. Denise Harrow reviewed a folder. Miles sat with both hands, clasped so tightly, his knuckles looked white. Garrett kept glancing at me, trying to read my face. He never could. Elaine could read me from another room. Garrett couldn't read me across a table. At 9:31, Evan cleared his throat. All right, folks. We're here for the transfer of the Porter property to Ridgeway Homes Development Group. Before we begin signatures, there are a couple of title items that need clarification. Denise looked up immediately. What items? Evan's face tightened. There appears to be a recorded life estate reserved to Mr. Samuel Porter. Garrett shifted in his chair. That's just estate planning, he said. It doesn't matter. Denise turned her head slowly toward him. It matters a great deal. Marissa leaned forward. But he's moving. No, I said. Everybody looked at me. I kept my voice calm. I am not moving. Garrett's face went red in patches. Dad. I raised a hand. No, Garrett, not this time. Patty Hale walked in exactly then. She was late by design, I'm sure. Patty believed timing was part of law, not separate from it. She carried one leather folder and wore the expression of a woman who had brought a broom to a mess she did not make. Sorry to interrupt, she said. Patricia Hale, counsel for Mr. Porter. Denise Harrow stood. Denise Harrow, Ridgeway counsel. They shook hands. That handshake had more knives in it than a butcher block. Patty placed 3 documents on the table. The life estate is valid, recorded, and controlling. Mr. Porter cannot be removed from the residence during his lifetime unless he voluntarily releases that right. He has not done so, and he will not do so today. Nolan Briggs leaned back. Garrett stared at the papers. Patty continued. Second, the access lane from County Road 11 is a separate parcel held by the Elaine Porter Memorial Trust, trustee Samuel Porter. It is not included in the purchase agreement. There is no subdivision access, no construction access, and no recorded easement granting Ridgeway development use. The room changed then. Not loudly, not dramatically, but it changed. The air sharpened. Nolan Briggs sat forward. Denise Harrow's eyes went flat. Evan Cole stopped moving papers. Miles closed his eyes. Garrett whispered, "That can't be right." Patty turned to him. "It is right. It has been right for years." Marissa said, "It's a driveway." "It is a separate legal parcel," Patty said. "Words matter." Denise opened her folder and began flipping pages fast. Nolan's voice dropped low. "Mr. Porter," he said to Garrett, not to me, "you represented vacant possession and usable access." Garrett's mouth opened, but nothing useful came out. "I was told," he said. "By whom?" Denise asked. He looked at me. That was his mistake. Denise saw it. Nolan saw it. Even Miles saw it. I leaned back and let the silence work. There are times, friends, when a man wants to shout. There are times he wants to stand up and say, "Look what you did. Look at it." But age teaches you that silence can hold a mirror better than anger can. Nolan pushed the purchase agreement away from him with 2 fingers. "This transaction cannot close." Marissa turned toward Garrett. "What does he mean?" He did not answer. Denise Harrow was still calm, but now it was the kind of calm that costs money. "Ridgeway has incurred engineering review, soil testing, preliminary planning, legal work, and mobilization costs based on representations made by the sellers. We will be evaluating remedies." "Remedies?" Miles said quietly. "Claims," Patty said, not unkindly. "She means claims." Garrett stood too fast. "This is my father being stubborn. That's all this is. He doesn't need 38 acres. He doesn't need a 4-bedroom house. He's one man. Aska." I looked up at my son. "There it is." "What?" "The truth you dressed up as concern." He flinched. I stood, slowly. My knees are not what they were, but I made sure nobody helped me. "You told these people I would leave my home. You told them they could use a road you didn't own. You told your brother this was business. You told your wife money was coming. You told yourself I was too old to matter." Garrett's jaw worked. "That is not fair." "No," I said. "What you did was not fair. What is happening now is accurate." Miles put both hands over his face. Nolan Briggs gathered his folder. Denise Harrow gave Patty a card. Evan looked like he wanted to crawl under the conference table and live there until retirement. Ridgeway left first. Nolan did not shake Garrett's hand. That was answer enough. Marissa stood next. "Garrett," she said, and there was something sharp and frightened in her voice. "We need to talk outside." He did not move. "Now?" She left without waiting. Miles stayed seated. Patty looked at me. I nodded once. She took the hint and stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind her. Then it was just me and my sons, in a title office that smelled like printer toner and failed plans. Garrett spoke first. "You let it get this far." "Yes." "You could have told me about the lane." "Yes." "You could have stopped us before Ridgeway got involved." "I tried to stop you at my kitchen table. You mistook my no for a delay." He paced to the window. "You wanted to humiliate me." "No, Garrett. You wanted to profit from humiliating me. I just refused to do it privately." Miles's voice cracked. "Dad, I'm sorry." I looked at my youngest boy. He was 40 years old, but for 1 second I saw the child who used to carry injured birds to Elaine in shoeboxes. "I believe you," I said. "But sorry is not a broom. It does not sweep up what you helped break." He nodded, tears spilling now. Garrett turned from the window. "What happens now?" "Ridgeway will likely come after you for expenses. Patty thinks somewhere between 30 and 50,000, depending how hard they push." Marissa's diamond bracelet flashed in my memory. Garrett swallowed. "God, you should call a lawyer before lunch." He laughed once, bitter. "You enjoying this?" "No." "You sure?" I looked at him for a long time. I am watching a boy I raised become a man I have to defend myself against. There is no enjoyment in that. That finally reached him. His face changed, just a little. I reached into my inside jacket pocket and pulled out another document. Both of them looked at it, like men who had learned to fear paper. "This is not about Ridgeway," I said. "That part is already done. This is about what comes next." Miles wiped his face. "What is it?" "An amendment to my trust. Garrett went still. I unfolded the document and laid it on the table. After your mother died, I bought something. Not for myself, exactly, for the family. 12 acres of highway frontage near the new bypass route. The old Hensley parcel. Garrett frowned. He knew the name. Men who watch land values know every parcel with road frontage. I bought it through the Elaine Porter Memorial Trust. Paid $118,000. It wasn't much then. Scrub pine, a collapsed shed, drainage problems. Your mother would have called it ugly, with potential. Miles whispered. You never told us. No. I planned to tell you when I was ready. Garrett stared at me. What's it worth? There it was. Even after everything, the first question was price. I felt something in me settle. Appraisal came back last month. 1.3 million. The room went silent in a way I can still feel when I think about it. Miles made a small sound, almost a breath knocked out of him. Garrett did not move. The bypass changed everything, I said. Commercial corner. Utilities nearby. Clean title. No debt. That was going to be yours. Half and half. Not because you earned it. Because you were Elaine's boys. And she believed a parent leaves doors open even when children wander. Garrett's lips parted, but no words came. You tried to sell the farm for $640,000. Split 2 ways, before taxes and trouble. That was not even enough to fix whatever hole you're in. You were so eager to grab what you could see that you lost what you never bothered to ask about. Miles cried openly then. I kept my eyes on Garrett. I amended the trust yesterday. When I die, the Hensley parcel goes to the Elaine Porter Trade Scholarship Fund at Bell County Community College. Electricians, welders, linemen, mechanics. Young people who want to work with their hands and build something honest. Garrett whispered, You're giving it away. No, I said. I'm putting it where it will be respected. His face twisted. Because of one mistake? One mistake is forgetting a birthday. One mistake is backing into a mailbox. You tried to sell your father's home out from under him and told him to be gone by Friday. He looked down. I softened my voice, because he was still my son, and that is the hardest part of all. Garrett, I loved you before you knew what money was. I love you now. But love is not permission. Love is not a deed. Love does not mean I hand you the matches after you tried to burn down my house. Miles said, Is there any way back? I turned to him. For family? Maybe. For trust? Slowly. For the land? No. Garrett's shoulders dropped. And for just a second, I saw him at 12, standing in the barn doorway after breaking Elaine's favorite blue mixing bowl, scared not because of punishment, but because he had destroyed something that could not be put back exactly the same. I thought I was helping, he said. No, I said gently. You hoped helping and taking would look enough alike that nobody would stop you. He closed his eyes. Patty opened the door a few minutes later. She didn't ask if we were done. She knew. I walked out first. In the parking lot, Marissa stood by Garrett's truck with her arms folded, phone pressed to her ear, already telling somebody a version of the story where she had been wronged. Garrett went to her. Miles stayed beside me. Dad, he said. I turned. I should have stood up to him. Yes, I said. I don't know why I didn't. I do. He looked at me. Because following your brother felt easier than disappointing him. He nodded, ashamed. Go home, Miles. Sit with that. Don't drink it away. Don't pray it away. Don't blame Garrett for the part with your signature on it. Sit with it until it teaches you something. He cried again, but he nodded. I drove home alone. When I reached County Road 11, I stopped at the gate and got out. The chain was cold in my hands. I unlocked it and stood there a minute, looking down the gravel lane Elaine had insisted we protect. 3 acres of dirt and stone, that was all. A strip of land most people would not notice. But sometimes the smallest piece is the piece that keeps everything else from being stolen. I drove slowly toward the house. The peach trees were still bare. The barn still leaned. The porch light was still on, because I had forgotten to switch it off that morning. Elaine would have fussed about the electric bill. I parked by the steps and sat there with both hands on the wheel. I did not feel victorious. Not the way people imagine. Revenge, real revenge, the kind that comes inside a family, does not taste sweet. It tastes like coffee gone cold. It fills your mouth with what cannot be unsaid. But I did feel steady. That matters. Ridgway's claim settled 6 weeks later for $38,500. Garrett paid most of it. Miles paid part because his name was on the agreement, and I respected him more for not running from that. Marissa did not take it well. I heard that from 3 different people before Garrett told me himself. Their house went quiet for a while, the way houses do when money starts telling the truth. Garrett did not call me for 27 days. Miles called after 9. The first call was awkward. 40 seconds of weather, then silence. Then he said, "Dad, I've been thinking about Mom. We talked for almost an hour. Not about land, not about money. About Elaine burning biscuits. About the time Garrett got his head stuck in the stair railing. About the peach tree that never produced a single decent peach, but she wouldn't let me cut down because she said stubborn things deserved company. That was a start." Garrett came by in April. He didn't bring Marissa. He didn't wear polished boots. He drove his old work truck, the one with a dented tailgate, and he stood on the porch holding his cap like a boy outside the principal's office. I let him stand there a moment, not to be cruel, to let him decide whether he was there for money or for me. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry, Dad." I said nothing. He swallowed. "I'm sorry I tried to sell the farm. I'm sorry I treated you like a problem. I'm sorry I let Marissa and Bill's and my own pride turn Mom's home into a number. That was better. Not perfect, but better." I opened the screen door. "Coffee's on." He cried at the kitchen table, quietly. A grown man's cry, the kind that fights itself on the way out. I did not hug him right away. Some folks may not like that. That's all right. Every family wound has its own rules. I poured him coffee in Elaine's yellow mug and sat across from him. After a while, I said, "You hungry?" He laughed through his nose. "Always." So I made eggs, burned the toast. Elaine would have had something to say about that too. The Porter place is still mine. The life estate remains recorded. The lane remains in Elaine's trust. The Hensley parcel remains pointed toward the scholarship fund, and I have not changed my mind. Some people think forgiveness means restoring everything to how it was before. It doesn't. Forgiveness is opening the gate. Trust is handing over the key. Those are not the same thing. Garrett comes by once a month now. Sometimes he fixes fence. Sometimes he brings the grandkids. Sometimes we sit on the porch and say very little. Miles comes more often. He planted 2 new peach trees along the south fence last fall. Said he wanted to do something that would still be here after him. I told him that was the first smart land decision he had made in years. He laughed. I did too. The old gravel lane still runs from County Road 11 to my front porch, narrow and ordinary and worth more than my sons understood. Every morning, I walk it as far as the mailbox. Some days my knees complain. Some days the wind cuts through my jacket. Some days I still hear Elaine behind me, telling me not to track mud into her kitchen. And every time I close that gate, I think the same thing. A home is not just a thing you own. It is a thing that remembers who loved it. And if your children forget that, brothers and sisters, make sure the paperwork doesn't. Love is strongest when it has both an open heart and a steady gate. Protecting what matters is not bitterness. It is a way of honoring the people who built it with you. Forgiveness can begin with coffee at the kitchen table, but trust grows back slowly, like peach trees planted after a hard winter.